Welcome back to the Book Summary Podcast. I'm your host, Dario Gonzalez, and today we will be continuing with Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Promise, Chapter 5. So, last chapter we accompanied Aang and Katara during their visit to the Earth Kingdom's capital, Ba Sing Se, which didn't really go well and ended up with Earth King Kui ordering General Hao to use the army to take back the city of Yu Dao. This forces Aang and Katara to rush back to Yu Dao in order to warn them and to initiate an evacuation. At the same time, spies from the Fire Nation inform Fire Lord Zuko about the mobilization of the Earth Kingdom's army, and he orders the mobilization of his army in response. So, with both the Fire Nation and the Earth Kingdom mobilizing their armies, the stage is set, and we begin this chapter with a battle. On a stormy day, the Fire Nation and the Earth Kingdom army face each other on a large battlefield, both sides giving it their all and neither side gaining a clear advantage over the other. At the top of a nearby cliff that overlooks the battlefield, we find Aang and Zuko surveying the battle. They are both haunted by the memories of the conversations they had with their predecessors, Aang with Avatar Roku, and Zuko with his father, Ozai. Zuko tells Aang about his inner turmoil and how he is torn between defending his people and following through with the Harmony Restoration movement. Meanwhile, his father's voice reiterates what he's told him before, that whatever the Fire Lord chooses to do is the right thing because the Fire Lord chose to do it. It's a very circular might equals right type of logic. However, this does affect Zuko's state of mind, and he lashes out at Aang because of it. He blames Aang for having Ozai's voice poisoning his mind because Aang did not silence Ozai once and for all when he had the chance to do it. Meaning, he did not kill Ozai when he had the chance. At the same time, Avatar Roku's spirit reminds Aang of the promise that he made Zuko back when his friend's mind was clear and he had a firm grasp of what was right. So, he pushes Aang to kill Zuko and finally restore harmony back to the world. Zuko, strangely enough, has the exact same request from Aang. He tells him that he doesn't know if he'll ever be free of his doubts, so he wants Aang to kill him. Under the pressure of both requests, Aang relents and goes into Avatar mode. As Aang gets ready to strike Zuko, Zuko sees the ghost of Avatar Roku, and behind them, he sees the spirit of his mother, Ursa, who's in tears. Now, for those of you who don't know or don't remember, Zuko's mother, Ursa, whom we know very little about at this point of the story, and I mean the show and the comics, is the granddaughter of Avatar Roku, meaning that Zuko is the great-grandson of Aang's predecessor, Avatar Roku, on his mother's side. Anyway, seeing the spirit of his mother in tears prompts a reaction from Zuko, who immediately regrets his decision and begs her not to cry. However, it is too late, and Aang's deadly attack is already underway. And, just as Aang's attack is about to hit Zuko, they both wake up. Confused, agitated, and deeply disturbed. Our story picks up from there as Aang and Katara arrive in Yu Dao, and they fly over the city warning the Fire Nation citizens that they need to evacuate the city. However, as they do so, they are attacked by firebenders, earthbenders, and a mysterious figure who throws a bunch of axes at them. They manage to block or dodge all the attacks, and Aang goes after the guy who's currently unarmed because he threw all his throwing axes at them, thinking that he'd be the safest person to attack. Unfortunately for Aang, the man runs straight into an axe factory, and his attack continues. However, the axe-throwing assailant is no match for Aang and his airbending skills. He uses the quick little punt, where he kind of kicks a arrow ball at somebody, and he brings the assailant down. As he does so, Katara arrives, and they both discover that their mysterious attacker is none other than Sneers, whom you may remember was given an ultimatum by his girlfriend, Corey, at the end of Chapter 3, and it appears he's made a choice. Aang is thoroughly confused by his attack and demands an explanation. However, before he can answer, Corey, who arrives flanked by her fellow resistance fighters, cuts Aang off and tells him that they are not leaving. Katara somewhat recognizes Corey, so she takes the opportunity to introduce herself once more, and Corey introduces the fighters of the Yu Dao resistance. Aang tries to convince Corey that she and her fellow Fire Nation citizens need to evacuate right away, while Katara chastises Sneers, whom the last time she saw was helping lead the protests against the Fire Nation, along with Smellerbee. Sneers then explains to Katara that he was confused and that he wanted to help Smellerbee in her protest because he used to hate the Fire Nation, but that after he left the Freedom Fighters when Jet and the other guys went to Ba Sing Se, he came to Yu Dao to live with his uncle, and without meaning to, he fell in love with Corey, a citizen of the Fire Nation. The rest of the Earth Kingdom citizens who are part of the resistance then tell Aang and Katara how many of their family members, friends, or vendors who sell really good mochi are Fire Nation as well, and that they've grown to love them. Katara doesn't understand how somebody joins the resistance to defend a guy who sells mochi, and Aang is absolutely stunned that Sneers is dating a hottie like Corey. Corey continues to explain that Yu Dao is both Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom, so they want to keep intruders from either side from coming in and interfering with their way of life. She also tells him that they're not afraid of Smellerbee and her little protests. That's when Aang drops the bomb and tells the resistance that the threat is not from Smellerbee, but from the Earth Kingdom army, which is headed their direction and could arrive any moment. This really rattles the fighters, but they rally behind the idea that they could defeat the army if they had the Avatar on their side. Aang begrudgingly explains that he can't help them in this situation because he promised the Earth King that he'd help see the Harmony Restoration movement through to the end. At that moment, a group of people dressed as airbenders enter the factory, and Corey suggests that if Aang won't help them, maybe one of those other avatars will. And everybody turns their attention to them. The leader of this little group of individuals dressed as airbenders takes the opportunity to introduce herself as Xing Ying, the president of the Yu Dao chapter of the Avatar Aang fan club. She also explains that they've been anticipating Aang's arrival. Aang is thrilled to see them, Katara not so much, and compliments them on how good their outfits look. President Xing Ying then explains that they take great pride in the authenticity of their work and explains that they devote a great deal of time to studying the Air Nomad's philosophy. She also explains to Aang that the arrow tattoos on their forehead and throughout their bodies, which are identical to Aang's, are also real tattoos. This piece of information greatly upsets Aang, who tells him that the Air Nomad's tattoos have to be earned after years of airbending training, that they are sacred to his people, and that his culture is not meant to be worn as a costume. Xing Ying tries to calm Aang down and explain that in order for a member to receive their tattoos, they have to master hundreds of airbending forms, and they go through rigorous study programs. Aang doesn't want to hear it, and he doesn't understand how they could claim to have studied Air Nomad philosophy and then come to the conclusion that what they're doing is okay. Katara tries calming him down, but Aang doesn't want to hear it and storms off. Katara chases after him and asks him where he plans on going. Aang tells her that he's going to the city gates to meet General Hao's army and hopes that maybe he'll be able to stall them long enough to give the Fire Nation colonials a little more time to evacuate. He also tells her that, and I quote, "It's time we separate the nations and restore harmony." So, I think that's a good place to stop. Next chapter, we'll check up on Zuko, along with Sokka and Toph, who haven't shown up in a few chapters, so we'll catch up with them as we inch ever closer to the conclusion of this awesome story. So, as always, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.